I left the radio yesterday in Colossians 1:23, and I'd made it down to the final clause. I was dealing with the matter of Calvinism, and if overly simplistic people will try to pigeonhole us into certain groups, and they'll say, well, now, if he believes this, then obviously he is that. And I've been accused of a lot of things over the course of my life. I've been called a hyper-dispensationalist. I've been called an ultra-dispensationalist. I've been called a Bible divider. I've been called King James only. And a lot of disparaging comments people have made about me in an effort to either pigeonhole me, guilt by association, or to ridicule a position that I hold. And I make no apology for the fact that I am a King James only, as they would say, and I would make that statement in the context of there are some men that are modern translation only. They don't care what translation you use, just so long as you don't, D-O-N', don't use a King James Bible. We don't care what you carry, just as long as it's not King James. So they say, well, he's King James only, and I certainly am, because I am certainly not a party of the modern translation only movement. I do believe the King James text to be without error. I believe the King James text, after having read it through more than 55 times, I've read the New Testament through nearly 100 times. That's not study. That's just reading. That doesn't take into consideration the books that I have studied through word by word, verse by verse, line by line. That's just reading, sitting and reading. And I've read the New Testament through over 90 times, and the Bible through over 55 times. I've lost count exactly, but more than 55 times. And I find no flaw, I find no fault in the King James Bible. I see nothing wrong with the received text, and I find no error in the 40 men that translated the King James Bible 408 years ago into the English language. I find no fault with their work. I believe the italicized words are in the King James Bible in the will of God, though not in Scribner's received text. I think they are in there according to the will of God. Now, having said that, there are a lot of things that are, again, that are said about me, and simple simpletons try to pigeonhole us, and they say, well, now, if you believe in eternal life, which I certainly do, the only people that believe in eternal life are Calvinists, so you must be a Calvinist because you believe in eternal life. And that is an overly simplistic oversimplification of the facts. I do believe in eternal life, but I do not accept Calvin's theory of religious philosophy. I don't accept that. I'm a dispensationalist, and therefore I cannot be a Calvinist, because to truly be a Calvinist, you must accept covenant theology. And I do not accept covenant theology. I do not accept covenantism as a valid method or means of biblical interpretation. I don't accept Reformed theology, covenant Reformed theology, or covenant theology. Now, having said that, the matter of limited atonement crumbles in the last clause of verse number 23, which ye have heard, and which was preached to every creature which is under heaven. The matter of limited atonement that is promoted by the religious philosophy called Calvinism fails once again in the face of just the plain reading of the Scriptures, which was preached to every creature which is under heaven. Scribner, and I have Scribner's Greek received text that I have used since about 1982 or 1983. I have the same Greek text at my desk in my study today, and I have had that one volume I have had for well beyond 30 years, nearly 35 years. Scribner gives a literal rendering of this passage in Greek. And his literal rendering is, which were proclaimed in all the creation, which is under heaven. Which were proclaimed in all the creation, which is under heaven. Now, as a result of this, which was preached to every creature which is under heaven, as a result of this, man is without excuse. Man may be an unbeliever, and many are. And man may be in the throes of unbelief, and many are. And man may outright reject the gospel of the grace of God, and many do. But man is inexcusable. He is completely inexcusable in the face of the fact that the gospel has been preached to every creature which is under heaven. Now immediately I can hear men protesting, and they can say, well, that can't be true, because we have unbelievers. That can't be true. But Psalm 19:1 makes a declaration that I believe just exactly as I read it in the King James Bible. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it. There is nothing hid from the heat thereof, or from the heat of the sun. The heat of the sun heats and warms and powers all of the solar system that we are in, the planetary system that we are in, is all powered by the sun. There is no place that is hidden from that. Now, man is without excuse. A man may be a Unitarian Universalist and may never go to hear a Baptist preacher stand in the pulpit and labor in word and in doctrine. A man may be a scoffer, a skeptic, and agnostic. A man may be an outright atheist and deny the existence of God. But that still does not relieve that man or remove that man from his responsibility that he has before God. Therefore thou art inexcusable, O man. Man is without an excuse. And the reason man is without an excuse is because the heavens declare the glory of God. It's interesting that when the Apollo mission went into the solar system, they read from Genesis 1. The astronauts that were on that Apollo spacecraft believed in God's creative work. They read from the Genesis account of creation. That God created, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the man down at the local university or the community college may think he's smarter than those men were in a bygone day. And he knows more facts and that he has lived in the postmodern world. And he may say, well, I looked through the telescope and I never saw God. Well, the reason you never saw him is you were not looking for him. But God has given much evidence. God is very easy to track. He leaves creation everywhere he goes. I tease my son sometimes. My adult son still lives at home. He works for the Powdersville Water District. And I appreciate my son and have great respect for him. And he is faithful in church. And I hope that he will soon be married to the young lady that he's been going with. But I tease my son, I tease the young lady he's going with, and I say, my son is very easy to track. He leaves mud everywhere he goes. He leaves mud. He's easy to track. He doesn't take a pack of bloodhounds, just look for mud. Everywhere he's been, mud falls off of him. Well, that's the nature of the job he has. He runs equipment and puts in water lines, and it's just the nature of his job. It's a dirty job, a muddy job. Well, now, I may not see my son, but I can get home at 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night from being on the road preaching, driving in at night, and I can tell whether or not my son's home because I'll see his muddy boots on the front porch, and I fuss at him about this, but I'll see mud on the rug we have in front of the front door to wipe our feet on before we go into the house, and there'll be mud there. And I'll say, well, my son must be home. Or there'll be mud in the driveway, which has fallen off of his four-wheel drive Dodge pickup truck. Well, God is easy to track because God has left creation everywhere he goes. God leaves good everywhere he goes. And for a man to live in the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina, southwestern Virginia, East Tennessee, northwestern Georgia, and look at the Great Blue Ridge or Smoky Mountains or Appalachian Mountains and not see the handiwork of God, that man is blind. And out in the plains for a man to look up and see the big sky. And in June I'll be back in Montana, and you can see 100 miles. You can see 100 miles out there and see the big sky. You see the clouds and the expanse. And for a man to not see the handiwork of God, that man is blind. The heavens have preached to every creature which is under heaven.
Correspondence may be sent to the Bright Spot Hour, Post Office Box 4,